Okay, I'm Mario with Square Paws, and today I'm speaking with Michele Sanders, who's an animal communicator. And thank you for joining me today. I want to talk about animal communication, and this is something that you're able to do. And I wanted you to maybe start off with talking about some of my cat's issues. So Michele is a client of Square Paws. She and her husband had us build a catio a few years back.
Mm.
And Michele and her husband Tim have 4 male cats. And I have 4 cats, 1 male and 3 females, with one of them being a recent addition, a kitten named Sophia. And my male cat has acted out against Sophia several times where he's pounced on her, he's attacked her to the point where she screams out. And she just wants to play. She's just seemingly a happy little kitten. And she's now about 5 or 6 months old. And I had asked Michele several times to check in and speak with Chicho. And I thought we'd start this talk out with you telling me some of how that communication went.
Okay, and it's a good question because it's a very typical of what I do. People come to me for many different reasons to help them and their animals. And the point is to understand each other better. And in this case, it's a behavioral issue. And I want to make it clear that I'm not a behaviorist, although what I do can marry very, very well with a behaviorist and what they do. And typically in your case, you didn't understand why Chicho was so hard on little Sophia. And
He's here, by the way. He heard you talking about him.
Oh, hi, Chicho. We are talking about you. I'm going to tell everyone how wonderful you are.
That's okay. He said you don't have to lie. He knows he's been alpha male, behaving like one of these. But go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, and I think based on our last communication, my last communication with Chicho, I think the root of his, well, I wouldn't say a problem, it's the way he is. The root of why he reacts to Sophia the way he does is because, one, male cats are not nurturing by nature, not unlike the female side. In nature, male cats would just as soon kill a kitten to get the mother to go back into estrus sooner, and then pass on his genes instead of nurturing someone else's genes. So that's how male cats look at it. And I explained to Chicho that in my experience, I've known very many, well, not very many, a few, very strong male cats that were entities to deal with out in nature. But boy, you put them with a kitten and they would just melt. They would just let the kitten play with their tails and do whatever they want, roughhouse, and be very gentle and sweet with them. They are the minority of cases. But I wanted to bring that to Chicho's awareness because I think it'll help him understand that being macho is not always expressed in the same way, and not always
possible for him to be nurturing as a male.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And hopefully it kind of got through because that conversation in the past, Chicho has always been very condescending to me. He hasn't taken me serious. He hasn't, he's really kind of thought I was a big joke. The last time I think he actually took me seriously for the first time, which made me feel good. And because I think in his heart, he wants to have harmony at home, and he doesn't want to have you and anyone else in the household angry at him for beating up on little Sophia. But he feels that you don't understand his position, that he will teach her and how to be a good cat and the rules of the house. And when she doesn't pay attention, she doesn't focus, he gets upset with her. And he strikes out. And then there's this interplay of you interpreting him lashing out at her or reprimanding her differently than maybe he means it. I'm not there to see.
Some of this, Michele, you said that he's sort of trying to correct her as a kitten, trying to teach her like cat etiquette, which I think is an interesting thing for us cat people to understand, that we'll get into more in a little bit, about how cats communicate with each other and how you're communicating with him to understand and make me understand his behavior.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point. How do they communicate with each other? Well, pretty much the same way we do, a variety of ways. Telepathy being their major way. We as humans were all born with the ability to communicate with each other telepathically. But somewhere along the line in evolution, we turned our backs on that and in favor of spoken language. So now we've gotten to the point where we don't have a balance between the two. We're much more spoken and much less telepathic. And very often children are taught to disregard their intuitive, their psychic, their telepathic abilities, and suppress those, put those to the side in favor of language. Animals, however, don't have that training. They use it all the time, but they also use body language, sound, vocalizations. So just like us, and we do that too. So in a case with Sophia and little Chicho, he might be sending her telepathy saying, okay, calm down now, or something like that, or stop doing that. And she's a lighthearted little innocent, and she just keeps wanting to keep doing what she's doing, or keep playing, or, you know. And so when telepathy doesn't work, now we've got going into the physical side,
behavior,
the vocalizations, the posturing.
Because cats really won't meow to each other. It's an interesting thing, right? Cats meow to people.
That's because they know people don't get telepathy. So they're trying to use what people use.
So with specifically for this example, and then we'll get into more kind of general conversation to get people into what it is that you do. With Chicho, was the communication, how does that work when you're communicating with him? You're in sort of a state of mind, like kind of a trance state? Do you
it's not really even a trance state. I try to be, I just don't want, when I start a communication, I don't want to clutter my brain with, oh, I've got to go shopping after this, and I got to do this, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want any mental chatter. So it's more of a meditative state, and where I'm calm and I'm open and making a clear channel between the animal and myself. So, and that's what it is. I tend to be clear cognizant, which means that's my main sense that I happen to have more developed. Other people are clear visual, clear audio, and all the rest of the senses. So, but claircognizance is what works most for me. And that's a download of just knowledge. I just know. So I can't come to you and say, oh, I saw in an image, this scene or this meaning. All I can tell you is that I know that this is what he's saying. And then sometimes that's peppered with images and even feelings. I'll tell you about a remarkable experience I had one time with one cat, but basically I get downloads. So I have to sit with with my iPad keyboard And I just type
What you're getting, the
what's
information.
coming across. So I ask a question, and very often, because they're so adept at telepathy, is just so second nature to them, that they know what I'm going to ask before I'm going to ask, and they're giving me the information. And usually they're so happy to talk to somebody who can actually understand them, to really appreciate their point of view and their motivations and how they feel and what they feel is important, which isn't always isn't always aligned with human feelings of what's important. So there,
it's not linguistic, right? It's not a language or
No.
vocabulary that they're speaking. You're not asking, but you're asking in a kind of telepathic way.
Well, I'm asking, in my mind, I'm asking a
heart.
language. Like I'll ask Chicho, okay, why did you do this? And in my mind, I'm doing it linguistically. But when it comes into me, it comes in as a download of information, not in words. But my mind has to translate that to be able to get it down in paper so that you can understand it.
Gotcha.
So it's all translation. So, and that's where the fuzziness can come in sometimes, because, for example, if you ask a cat, how old are you? And he could answer it one of two ways. He could answer in terms of years of time, but usually it's more what age he feels he is. And most animals don't even understand why that would be an important question, because they always feel quizzical, like, what significance is that? What does it matter? They just.
That's so funny, because
so
I relate with
What?
Chicho's behavior sometimes, Michelle. And Sophia comes around and she'll like make these little noises around him, like, "Woo," like, what are you doing? And like you and Tim, I kind of speak for them in human voice, right? And I say, oh, because she'll stare at him, and I think she's saying, like, there's that mean old man, like mean old Uncle Chicho. And it means nothing to them. I wonder, how are years for them, like, because I always say, like, dog years are dog years, 7 years per human year.
Right.
And cats have a different structure, right? Where it's like the first year they grow like 14 or 15 years, and then the years sort of taper differently as they get older. Do they see time differently? Like when they download to you, is there some sort of sense of time to them?
They do. They're not so, they don't pin time down the way we do. It's either long ago or so many cycles of the sun. So if I want to tell a cat that something's going to happen, and it's going to happen very, very soon, then I might be able to say, well, in 5 cycles of the sun, this is what's going to happen. But if it's much longer than that, they don't bother with that kind of detail. That's not the kind of detail that they're interested in. So I'll say, soon something will happen. And then they might very well ask, well, what do you mean soon? How soon? How many cycles of the sun? I said, well, longer than that. Maybe, and then that's where translating comes in, because sometimes I can send them an image of the sun going around quickly. This is the only way I know how to do it in my mind.
So you visualize that.
So like, I visualize that, and they get that. They
like
get
the moon, like it's so many cycles of moon.
Exactly, where the sun is going around a lot. So I'm telling them it's going to be a while, but not what they would consider a long time. And that's where specifics are very difficult. I can't tell them, oh, well, in 3 months, this is going to happen. That's very vague. But they always get it, and they always understand. Like right now, I'm working with 4 cats who will soon meet each other, probably in February sometime. We'll meet each other, and for the first time, and have to live with each other. So I'm laying the groundwork to prepare them to do that, maybe not happily, but with acceptance, and not being so afraid of the interaction because what worries them in this case is that someone's going to be trounced on and and picked on, and because she won't be able to, you know, keep up with the others or be as strong as the others. And they all have these little reasons why the concept of living with two other strangers is very frightening and very off-putting. So it's a thing in progress, but I'm sure we'll make headway. I've done it before. And
that's
with
the interesting
moves.
thing about this too, right? Is that it's not just, you're not just getting information or asking questions. You're communicating and being a liaison from like the human guardian, pet parent, or whatever, to the animal.
That's right.
And there's a dialogue there. In fact, one of the things that came out of this, I think this last or previous session you did with Chicho, was that he sort of was taken by surprise that I brought a kitten into this, you know,
an important point.
Which, you know, she was a rescue. We trapped her, we had her fixed, and we're fostering her, and then, you know, decided to adopt her. So
and she stayed.
And she stayed. She overstayed her welcome, according to him. But you know, so you're having a dialogue back and forth, and sometimes
definitely
talking to people about, talking to the animals about what to expect. And we'll get into that with some case things. But let me ask you, how did you realize you had this ability? Like, when and how did that come about?
You know, I didn't have the ability. Well, okay, let me backtrack. I've always been intuitive. I wouldn't say psychic, but, you know, growing up, and I've always had an affinity for animals, but I always thought, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful? You know, years ago, there was a film called Dr. Dolittle with Rex Harrison, and I just loved that film because I thought, oh, wonderful to be able to talk to them just the way I talk to other people. And to me, it was a wonderful dream, but a fantasy. And then, back in, must have been 2015, I think, someone at work asked me, okay, anything aside, you know, don't put together what can be, just what's your fantasy? What would you love to do? And I said, well, I'd love to talk to animals and help them through talking to them and understanding them better. But what I didn't realize is I had the ability. I just had to learn how to tap it, how to develop it, how to redevelop it, is what I should say. And I found a wonderful teacher, Kumari Mullen, and I learned at a big cat sanctuary, and it was a like fabulous experience. No lions, and no tigers, but there were cheetahs, leopards, jaguars, ocelots, all manner, lynx, all manner of other types of wild cats. And that's a whole different type of experience than dealing with a domestic animal. And that's fascinating.
That's how you were learning.
And that's how I trained. And thereafter, it was up to me to just practice. And having 4 male cats, or I didn't have 4 male cats there at that time, but at any rate, having cats, I had that problem. And then I would go out and try and talk to anybody I could, tap. And
were you practicing on your own cat or cats at that time?
Oh, sure, I should. But you know what? I find them the hardest to talk to.
Really?
Yeah, because they tend to dismiss me, and they tend to, unless it's important to them, then that's a whole different story. But I find it's much easier for me to talk to other people or other animals than my own family. Figure that one out. But I do, and we do. I told one of them that to stop doing something that was just, he was on the bed and he was crowding me, and I could feel my back stiffening up. So I said, oh, please stop. And I just sent him a mental image of moving to the end of the bed. That's all. And he did it right away. Wow. He understood. Yeah. So I do that all the time with them, and they take it for granted. They don't think of it as anything extraordinary, or they just think of it as normal. And but I guess we're jumping around, but there's
That's
so
okay.
much to say on this subject because there's so much that good that can come of it if people understand why their animals are doing things. I had a lady once who was worried about her dog. She said the dog is listless and she doesn't know if there's something wrong with him physically or what it was. Long story short, the dog was fine physically, but he was very worried. The dog was a girl, she was very worried about her human because she explained that her human continued to make the same kind of mistake with the people in her life. And she listened to the wrong advice, and she would jump into relationships, and I guess there was a new relationship budding at that time, and the dog was concerned that he wasn't right for her and she was making the same mistake. And the dog was trying to advise her to, sit back, don't be in a hurry, really get to know this person, and then make a decision. And this was interesting. Then, whatever you do, do not listen to that elder female's advice. And I said, elder female, what elder female? And somehow I wasn't getting any
Like
details on who this person was in his human's life. So finally I said, can you send me an image? Try to send me an image. And she did. And I got a very clear image of a woman, narrow face, glasses, short dark hair, kind of like mine, short hair, and very skinny face and pointy nose, and then a certain kind of glassware. I think they were square or rectangular or something. And so when I described that lady to the human, she said, "Oh my God, that's my mother." Dog was saying, "No, don't listen to her. She's gonna steer you wrong." And the human did confirm that her mother loves chaos, so she'll create chaos wherever she can. So she understood why the dog was saying that.
Sometimes dog knows best.
Oh, very often dog knows best, and cat. I mean, they're so wise, and there's so much more wise. We look at them as small, beautiful animals, but we always have this superior attitude towards them, that we take care of them. We're going to decide what they eat, where they live, who they live with, blah, et cetera, et cetera. And what we forget is that they are creatures of free will. They are creatures of high intelligence and even higher spiritual development than we have. That I have learned. And I really would like anyone listening to this to understand that they're very highly evolved. They don't see death the way we do. They have they're just so much more evolved in that sense.